Okay, Sam, do you have, I've got 10:45. Do you have 10:45?
Yeah, I got 10:45, yeah.
Okie dokie. Right, going to assume that everybody is here and they are listening. So we're going to kick off. So let me introduce myself and I'll let Sam introduce himself in just a moment. So my name is Ian Boyd. I'm the CEO here at Notts County Football in the Community. Sam?
So I'm Sam Crawford. I'm Head of Income Development at Notts County Football in the Community. So my role is looking into financial strategy and marketing communications.
Okay, good stuff. So what we're going to do is we have our 45-minute session here. So we've got plenty of time for questions at the very end. So we're going to take it in turns a little bit. I'm going to speak for the first kind of 15 minutes or so, and then Sam is going to pick up for the second 15 minutes. So we'll take it in turns there. Please do get in touch and pop any questions in the chat box, and we can try and answer them towards the end. And so, yes, so let's kick off. So we are Notts County Football in the Community. We are linked to Notts County FC, the oldest professional club in the world. And so we are the charitable arm of what they do in the community. So all the activity, all the community work that takes place across Nottingham City, across Nottinghamshire, that comes through us. So we're here today to talk a little bit more about Portland Leisure Centre, which is our community hub. And we do recognise, and I know that both Sam and I will go into this in a bit more detail, we're on a journey with our community hub. So it's an absolutely wonderful asset that we have that's based in the Meadows ward, which is an area of central Nottingham. And there's a lot that we do out of the leisure centre, which is what we'll talk about here now. And then there's a lot that we will aim to be doing and a lot of potential that we can try and pick up over the coming years. So could you move on to the next slide, please, Sam? So my first bit will be around talking about the history, talking about some of the projects that we currently run, and then Sam will be picking up a little bit more of the detail around opportunities and challenges through the leisure centre. So yes, we have the Portland Leisure Centre. As I said, it's in the heart of the Meadows, which is a ward in the south of the city of Nottingham. The actual leisure centre, so it's a fully, if you can picture it, and we'll show some photos in a moment. If you can picture it, it's a fully functioning leisure centre. It's 115 years old, so it is pretty old. As you can see, it was built in 1905 and opened through the city council there. It's been one of the cities in the portfolio of council-run leisure centres for the last number of years, but up until 2014, we took it over. So our charity took it over then. But up until that point, it had a number of different guises. So it had some work that was done during the Victorian times, so the old wash house. So again, you can tell that it was a hub of the community. So it's where people went to socialise, it's where people went to physically wash themselves, to keep fit, to socialise. So it's always been that kind of part of the community. It had some roles to play and was requisitioned during the Second World War as well. And there have been plenty of English and Olympic records and kind of training records that have been broken in our swimming pool there. So over the years, the last 115 years, there's been plenty of activity that's taken place there. So it was brought over to our operation as a part of a community asset transfer, which was established in 2014. And this was very much supported in the negotiations. So our charity, Football in the Community, was supported by Sport England, by the Football Foundation, and by the city the city council, so Nottingham City Council. And they were very generous in the grants that they shared, and this helps us kind of re-establish some of the behind the scenes of the boilers, making it a lot more efficient, getting it back up to a kind of running space. And so since 2014, we have been running the centre as our community hub. So it's got wet side, which is all of the swimming operations. It's got dry side, which is the sports hall, the gym, and everything on that side of the business. So we're 6 years into a 25-year lease. So it's a long-term commitment that we're working with the City Council as our strategic partner on. And it's where we base most of our staff. So we've got staff, we've got our services, and we've got our delivery that takes place out of the Portland Centre as well. Could you move on to slide 3, please, Sam? Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll just draw your attention. I believe it's on our profile and possibly down in the details of this presentation. But there is a link through to a 1-minute video, and that gives you also a snapshot into an introduction into the Portland Centre. So I'll let you access that at your own in your own time, and you can see a video of how that works. So. If I draw attention back to the photos are up on the screen, you can see it's got the swimming side of things. So it's a 33-yard swimming pool. It can be split into 4 lanes, and these are where we deliver much of our swimming clubs. So we have lots of young people. There's around about 400 young people who come for swimming lessons into the evenings and over the weekends. We have plenty of local swimming club adults who come along as well. And so it's a very popular, very busy swimming pool. If you look down at some of the other pictures, we've got the sports hall, and that's clearly in that photo set up for kind of running activity, football. You can see basketball in the background. We also have netball. It's got space for 4 badminton courts. We've got 2 squash courts that are outside of that photo as well. We've got a cardio gym which is the photo on the right, so you can see the running machines and the bicycles. On the left, you can see the weights. We've got 2 weights rooms with free weights and weights machines, and a studio. So we've got lots of activities, Zumba, yoga, all the different classes that take place. So there's plenty of activity, as I say, a fully kind of established and operational leisure centre. Obviously, everything that I'm describing is kind of pre-COVID for everyone who knows this and who's based in England, where we are. We're in the middle of a national lockdown. So at the moment, the centre is closed to the public. So everything that I'm describing is part of our usual service and or outside of COVID. So in 2018, 2019, we had 300,000 visits that came along to people who came along to the centre. Some of those will be repeat members who've come along. So as I said, there will be about 400 members of the swimming side of things. We've got another 400 members of the gym side of things as well, gym and studio. So we're looking to grow that, particularly now as we kind of pick ourselves back up from all these lockdowns and having to stop trading through government restrictions. And so again, in a pre-COVID world, we had been expecting to bring in about £400,000 of income in 2020. That has been brought down through COVID and through the national restrictions and the lockdowns that we've had happening here. But in the moments where we've been allowed to pick back up again, we have continued to trade. And this for us is absolutely wonderful, because it's our ability to work with our local community to trade, to provide a service, but it's unrestricted. So it means that funding can go back into the charity in any way that we see fit. So although there are plenty of kind of very sporty people and people who really want to focus in on their physical activity, and we do have links in. It's another way of us linking into the football club themselves, because the leisure centre is about 4 minutes away from Meadow Lane, which is where Notts County play. So we've got the first team of the men's and the women's first team who will come and use the swimming pool in particular, and the weights and the gym as part of their strength and conditioning and their kind of wind down after games. It's not just for elite athletes at all. So it's very much there for the community, for people of all different ages, backgrounds, abilities, disabilities, income levels, everything. So lots of different people will come and use our space, and that's really what we're there to do, is to try and work with as many people as we possibly can. Could you move on to the next slide, please, Sam? So if I start off with Shine, so we talk about our Shine outcomes. So if you look on the right-hand side, you can see that breaks down into sports, health, inclusion, NCS, and education. On top of that, we also run a leisure centre, which is Portland, which we'll go into all that detail on. So just as a bit of example, I'm sure this is very similar to many of you guys as well, but some of our operations when we're talking about sports is going into schools. So here in England, we're very much supported by the Premier League and the EFL to run some of our schools, primary and secondary work. So it's around reading and writing and really helping young people with their physical activity. And often, and I think into the future, their mental health as well is going to be a big one. We also use this to run a lot of our sports development activities, and particularly to link in with the fans of the football club as well. So under health, what we're focusing there on is we've broken that down into physical health and mental health. So physical health, one of our biggest projects and our most well-known projects is called CARE. So this is our cancer rehabilitation project. So again, and I'm sure this is the case for a lot of you guys, but as we're talking about more than football campaign, yes, we are a CCO for a football club, and yes, we are known as Notts County, but football is a part of what we do and a very important part of what we do, but we also do many other types of work. So as I'm saying, cancer rehabilitation, we've been into prisons in the UK, in England with the Twinning project. We do lots of work with older folks, mental health work. I'll go in to describe a little bit more about these, but this is really one of our messages, and this is how Portland is useful to us as well, because it allows us to get across the length and the breadth of the work that we do. So it's not just football. So I was talking about the cancer rehabilitation work. This is for people who are suffering with cancer right now or are coming out of cancer treatment themselves. So this is helping them with that network of like-minded individuals, people who have gone through the same treatment. It's physically helping them with some activity that gets them stronger and fitter. So over the 6 months or so of the project, they become a lot more strong and have a lot more positivity into their future. The weight management project, which is Fit Fans in Training, which again in England, I'm sure lots of our colleagues are familiar with. So that's working with some of the fans of the football club to help them with their lifestyles, whether it's diet or physical activity, but allowing them to become a lot fitter. We run mental health, which is right mind and on the ball, and go into primary schools and do work around dementia as well. We've got disability work when we're moving on to inclusion, disability, refugees, and right now in particular, a lot of work around inclusion, diversity, and equality. NCS, I'm sure many of you know what that is, but it's a government-backed project here in England, and it is focused in on young people who are in that transition period between school and college, or college and university, so 15 to 17 years old, and we take out hundreds of young people across the county on a transformational couple of week project over the summer and the summer holidays to try and set them up for when they move on into their next part of their life. Education, we have BTEC, traineeship. We have another project called Heading for Goal, which is our alternative education. And most recently, we've got confirmation that we're going to be working with Kickstart, which again is a COVID-related project, which is the government's response to COVID and how it's going to help with youth unemployment into the future. So we're going to be supporting local young people with their employability through that. So when we talk about our SHINE outcomes, that's what we're talking about: sports, health, inclusion, NCS, and education. If we look on the left-hand side, you can see that I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but we were established as a community organisation in 1989. So that makes us pretty established, certainly in Nottingham and in the ward, the ward areas that we work in, but also as a charity across the country. That makes us one of the older and established of football charities. As I mentioned, 1.7 million, this is pre-COVID times, is what we've been predicting to turn over this year. We have around 50 staff. This is part-time, full-time. This is our core staff members. And this also includes, we've got a number of a pool of sessional staff. So for the swimming teachers and for the lifeguards as well over at the swimming side of things. And we've been running Portland as the operator since 2014. If you could move on to the next slide, please, Sam. Okay, just checking my time. So we have, if you look on the left-hand side, you can see a map. So if you look down at number 16, that is where we're based. This is the Meadows ward. So the map you're looking at is a map of Nottingham city centre, just to allow you to see where we're physically located. As I mentioned, we're based in the Meadows ward. We're also working in the city, across the city and across the county. So we're not restricted to just that kind of smaller area. We're across the county. But you'll be able to see, so we're on the very border, right down by the river, which is the county boundary, and it allows us to work across the city and across the county. If you look across to the middle sections, we've got the triangle, and so everything's based around need. And again, Portland really helps us to focus in on the need of our local people and get to know who they are and what their needs are. So everything we do is about the need, and not just because we've done it before, it's because it's based in stats, and we know that there's evidence of people needing support in a certain area. Although we are very good at lots of different things, I'm not going to claim that we are experts in every area. So that's why we need very strong partnerships. And you can see on the left-hand side there of that triangle, it's all about partnerships. So this is, again, I'm sure a lot of people will agree with this. It's about supporting each other, resources, funding, working closely together, and strong partnerships are a big part of that. And back up to the top, that is about the funding. So when we're looking at what pieces of work we deliver and where we deliver it, there's always that triangle of what's the need, who can we work with to make this project as successful as possible, and how do we make it sustainable with the funding so it's not a one-off piece of work, it's a multi-yeared, multi-layered piece of work. And so on the very right-hand side, you can see some stats about Nottingham city centre there. If I just very quickly run through that, it's got a very large university population, so you can see some of the youth stats on there. There's around 300,000 people, the population of the city. It's one of the top 10 cities population-wise in England. And again, if I zoom down out of the city and move into the Meadows ward, which is where we're based and where Portland is based, there's about 10,000 residents, so that number 16 on the ward map. 10,000 residents. It's a very diverse people, lots of diverse people in the population are there. It's historically pretty deprived. There's quite a lot of poverty that's been there for many years. There's plenty of people who are there who have English as a second language, and we've found that Pakistani background is a big one. So we're looking to adapt how we work with people and to make sure that we are fit for purpose, so people understand. We can understand who our beneficiaries are. And so issues such as obesity, low life expectancy, cardiovascular disease, and cancer are big health issues all across the Meadows. So when we're talking about the work that we can deliver out of Portland, we're needing to make sure that we recognise and we focus in on that. So Sam, if you click on to the next slide, and this is where you will take over from me, you're going to talk about the strategic opportunities.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So yeah, having got that context, so my intention is to talk about the strategic opportunities, challenges, and something about our future plans associated to Portland. So these obviously have been born out of our experience of operating the Portland Centre. However, I've tried to choose things that will be applicable more generally to anybody who's looking to develop a community hub facility of this kind. So the first thing to say is that for us, Portland brings a massive opportunity around community engagement. We are very conscious that we've taken on responsibility for a centre that is and has been for some time part of the Meadows ecosystem, having been established in 1905. That gives us that feeling of responsibility, but it also gives us a massive opportunity to operate a facility that is already interacted with and has been for some time by the local community. So strategically for us, that's really important because we want to be right at the heart of a community. We want to be looking to develop really established relationships of trust within that community. And whereas football stadiums are physically located within a community, the way in which they're interacted with is very transient, in so much as you have a fan base that will come in, tens of thousands of people on a match day and then leave again. So largely the interaction with a football stadium is very transient. So what we've got with Portland is the opportunity to create a facility that is rooted in a particular community. And that brings the opportunity to develop those more authentic relationships. It also gives us the opportunity to offset the footprint that the football club brings to that community. So we're very conscious that Meadow Lane, Notts County Stadium is located right on the edge of the Meadows. And on a match day, there's a certain amount of disruption that's caused to the local community, be that parking, be that the volume of people, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to play an active role in offsetting that footprint and providing that positive interaction with the community in its place. So that's the first thing, the community engagement element. Second thing is that Portland gives us the opportunity to promote more diversity of the sporting activity that we're delivering upon. So as Ian's mentioned, we're very much a charity that appreciates the value of the diversity of sport. So whereas football is something that we are clearly very passionate about, it's not the be all and end all. And you know, we are about more than just football. And Ian's already talked about some of the activity that we deliver that's more taking into account other sports. But Portland gives us a facility that we have control over to be able to try out new sporting opportunities to diversify our sporting offer. So, and we have a full flexibility and autonomy over that to an extent that we wouldn't do if we were having to use other facilities. So one of the things, and my colleagues often laugh at me when I talk about this particular example, that we're currently looking at is that we're working with Nottingham Croquet Club, who have 3 world champion croquet players within their club. You might be interested to hear, to develop what would be a low intensity exercise project for people recovering from cardiac conditions by using the game of croquet. So we're working with them to try and source an indoor croquet carpet that we put in our sports hall. And it would be a very unique offer to people recovering from cardiac or pulmonary conditions. That also exposes them to a new type of sport that perhaps they might not have had access to before. So that's one way in which we can put into practice the intention to use the diversity of sport and engage a diverse audience in what we're doing. So thirdly, in-kind contributions. So what I mean by this is, rather than looking just at the gross income generated by Portland, which as Ian's mentioned, pre-COVID, we were budgeting for £400,000 of gross income for the year. I think it's really important that we appreciate the indirect contributions that Portland brings to us. So we've recently done some calculations and we calculate that the in-kind financial contribution that Portland brings to the charity as a whole equates to £292,000. So that's quite a significant contribution. And it's really important that we recognise that because, you know, in all honesty, it's a large facility. The costs associated to delivering it are quite high. So if you're looking at gross income and gross expenditure, based on our budget that we did at the beginning of the year, we were budgeting for a net income of around about £10,000 for the year. So you can see that the costs associated to Portland are quite high if you're looking at just the direct costs and direct income. However, if we take into account the in-kind contribution, it then becomes clear that it is actually a very significant asset for us as an organisation. So I think it's important to recognise. Lastly, the customer to donor transition. So what I mean by this is quite a unique opportunity for us as a charity that's looking to grow our individual giving base, particularly in the light of funding cuts that may be with us now or with us in the future around grants and contracts. I think it's reasonable to assume that the funding environment is going to be quite challenging, perhaps across Europe, particularly in the light of COVID-19. So for us, it's really important to look at opportunities to grow the individual donor base. And what we have with Portland is we have an established customer base of individuals who have direct experience of accessing the facilities that we are using to support local people, local vulnerable people. So they have the lived experience of actually benefiting from those. And what we know is that people will give predominantly out of a degree of direct experience of the cause. So what we're really looking to do is to find new ways of encouraging that transition from interacting with our customers as customers and more moving them towards interacting with us as donors, and making the point that the membership subscription that they pay in order to access the facilities is directly enabling us to change the lives of local people. So that's quite a unique opportunity that we're really wanting to maximise going forwards. So moving on to the challenges, there are some challenges, definitely. This year has been particularly challenging for obvious reasons. And whereas we've talked about financial information prior to COVID-19, the truth of the matter is that COVID has brought about a massive financial challenge to us. We have thus far been able to mitigate for, but it has not been easy, as I'm sure everybody can relate to. So the trading pressures associated to the management and operation of the facility are significant and have been more significant this year. Part of that is about part of the ongoing challenges around the market competitiveness when it comes to facilities of this nature. We in the UK certainly have an emergence of chain gyms who are offering membership subscriptions at a price that's very, very competitive because it's done at scale. So the market is becoming even more competitive. So there's that sort of challenge there, very much so. And COVID has only exacerbated that issue. And the other thing is we need to find ways of balancing off the pressure to operate the centre as a commercial entity and maximising the trading opportunities, but also appreciating that it's predominantly, in terms of our core mission there, to serve the local community and to deliver charitable activities. So that sort of balancing of the commercial and the charitable can sometimes be quite challenging. Secondly, so pressure on the cash flow. We've talked about the operating expenses, so just shy of £400,000 a year in normal circumstances. So having to carry quite a lot of expenditure. We're often operating quarterly invoices, so we obviously have to carry a certain amount of cash flow in advance of actually receiving the income sometimes. There's quite a large payroll attached to it, which obviously it's a big facility to operate. You've got the issue of debtors that you're having to manage, making sure that we're driving that figure down as much as possible. And then lastly, investing in the improvements of the facility. So with it being such a large facility, and with us wanting to ensure that we've got the best possible facilities on offer for the local community, just to give an example, in order to repair our sports hall floor, we're looking at about £20,000. So the ongoing investment requirements are quite large. Fostering a one-team mentality. So it's a split site, it's a separate building, and often with what comes with that clearly is a danger of some microcultures coming about. And I think we've experienced that challenge, as I'm sure lots of other people have. And it can be challenging because Portland is predominantly operating as I say, in a commercial environment, perhaps more so than our other service delivery. So we really have to be on it in terms of making sure that the mission and the values of us as an organisation are embedded within Portland as much as they are within the other project areas that we've got going on. So that's certainly a challenge. And then lastly, the distinct marketing objectives. So Portland exists in a different marketing space, if you like, to many of our other projects. It has separate social media accounts. It has a separate website. It's accessing a very distinct sort of customer base, if you like, if you're looking at it just in commercial terms. So it can be quite difficult to balance off the need to give Portland that very sort of distinct marketing kind of effort, whilst also making sure that it contributes towards the overall brand of the organisation. We are rebranding as a charity in December. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second, but that will certainly give us the opportunity to address that challenge, perhaps more so than we have done currently. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour of the opportunities and challenges. So just bringing that all into focus and talking a bit more about our future plans in order to try and maximise the opportunities and address the challenges. As I mentioned just very briefly, we are rebranding and we've got a new website coming on for both the charity as a whole and for Portland, which is very much needed because the current website is quite poor by our own admission. So that will give us the opportunity to really broadcast the professionalism of the offer of Portland to the community, and to really broadcast our USP, which is the fact that we're operating what was a local authority leisure centre, but our fundamental desire is to use it for the benefit of the local community, and that is what sets us apart from generic leisure centre providers. So we want to target a sustained increase in membership, so we're looking at that sort of membership retention, but we also really want to drive more diversity within the membership, as well as Ian's pointed out, talking specifically about people within the community of Pakistani origin. We want to really proactively encourage that diverse engagement and diverse representation within the membership, sustain those members and grow the membership, and create opportunities for the members to have more opportunities for them to have their say around the running of the centre. So that's a kind of empowerment element to it. So we're also very passionate about the place-based approach, as I think as Ian's referenced very briefly. And we want to really use our physical presence in the Portland area, in the Meadows area, to develop much more project delivery within the Meadows area. Our intention is to really prove the value of that, if you like, within the Meadows, and then once we've evaluated that, to perhaps explore branching out into other areas. But that's very much sort of down the line. We're focusing the here and now on the Meadows area. Then also something that I've referenced very briefly, so the increased diversity of sport. I've talked about, the ideas like the use of croquet, etc. But we want to develop the facilities in Portland to try and make them, as I say, as good quality as we can, but also develop the opportunities to incorporate new sporting offers. And then lastly, and this is more pertinent in the light of COVID-19 than ever before, in my view, look at opportunities to collaborate within the community and use Portland as a means by which we can serve and help others within the community to do what they do. COVID-19 has obviously brought about massive pressures on the community as a whole, and Portland, being part of the community, has experienced those challenges along with everybody else. So we want to say, okay, well, let's recognise it's been a tough time. It's exacerbated a lot of social need within the community, but we want to put we want to put into action and use Portland to do so, our desire to support the community through that process of recovery. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a perspective. I'm really conscious that we need to try and leave time for questions, so we move on to that.
I'm looking at the chat, and so far there aren't any questions. But if anybody wants to ask anything, we've got kind of 10 minutes or so set aside right now for questions. So please do pop them in the chat box. I guess if we just chat for maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, and if nothing else comes through, then we can call it a day there. But yeah, please do pop anything in the chat box if you want. I was just going to add to what you just said there, Sam, when we were talking about the place-based. Yes, this is, I think you described it very, very well as how you spoke just a moment ago. I would just add to that this is almost like I guess a bit like our shop window. So if people are wanting to look into the charity and kind of get to know us a little bit more, and also for us to project something out to our local community and to the local residents of our city, of our county, we're able to use our physical space, our building, Portland, as a very obvious shop front there. And so this is very much about empowering local community members. So not trying to, I guess that we have all the answers. It's working, it's co-creating, it's definitely around consulting. And so I think these are all words that everybody is quite adept at and quite used to using, but it's about really putting that into practice as well. So we're trying to work with our local community to empower them, This has so many different benefits to us as an organisation, from getting to know more on the ground kind of grassroots information about our local community to inviting people potentially into the future onto our board. So we actually are there to represent the people who are our users. So our staff members, our kind of volunteers and our board members are made up of the people that we're serving as well. So it's not kind of from one group or other. It's pretty diverse across the workforce. And yeah, it's not about trying to think that we have all the answers. It's about working with our local community members. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. It's working with people, listening to what they want to say to us, and then trying to adapt our service to the needs, back to that kind of triangle of need, partnership, and funding. And I was just going to add my final little piece, and then Sam, if you had a final piece as well, but no worries if you don't. But my final bit was just a little bit more about some of those stats. So in the last year, so obviously COVID has interrupted quite a lot of this last year, but the last year that we had figures for, we worked with around 10,000 beneficiaries. So those were people either directly or indirectly through kind of family members or their networks. As I mentioned before, we had 300,000 visits to Portland. Some of those will be repeat visits, so the members who come into the centre time and time again. Through Portland, we were able to, because we deliver a lot of our sessions, our physical community sessions are based in Portland, as well as the actual swim and gym sessions. So we had 9,000 hours of engagement. So it gives you that, it allows you to see how much actual face-to-face time and work we can put into working with our local community and getting trust, respect, building up those community relationships with people. We were able to put on 12 events, not all of them, but a majority of them were based out of Portland. So again, inviting people to come in, and hopefully once they do come in, they then get to see the centre. They get to see how diverse it is in terms of the projects that we run there, and they can either come back, sign up as a member, and obviously there's financial, but then there's also positive community repercussions there because we're working with more people. And again, linking back into our football club, this allowed us to have 17 player visits through the centre as well. So when they come to visit young people, when we had some of our events that took place there, when they came and visited, the mental health sessions, that was a very powerful moment for some of our beneficiaries. So there's so many reasons why, yeah, as Sam mentioned earlier, the value to Portland, there is a financial value, but there's also a kind of value in kind and a core charitable value as well, which you almost can't put money on, and it allows us to get back to our community core charity purpose and deliver what we need to deliver. Did you, I'm just looking again, Sam, did you have anything you wanted to finish off with? There's no questions that come through on the chat, so I think we can probably leave it there, but Sam, if you wanted to end with anything.
No, I was just going to say, so I mean, obviously we've got our contact details here if anybody needs to contact us. Also, just to make the point that we are developing, well, we are right at the end of developing new websites. So just acknowledging that the current websites have their own limitations. But yeah, so do get in contact with us if you want to. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, well, thank you for this opportunity for us to come and talk a little bit more about Portland and the charity that we run and operate, Football in the Community, at Notts County. So if you do have any questions, you've got our contact details. Please do get in touch either throughout the course of the next couple of days at the conference, or again, you've got the details so you can get in touch whenever you want. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the final few hours of the conference, 24 hours of conference, and I look forward to speaking to you all a little bit later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.